Swearing in of President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris later this evening. We're now joined on the line by Professor Dirk Kotze from the Political Science Department at UNISA. Prof, always a pleasure to see you. Thank you so very much for availing yourself to SABC News this afternoon, sir.
Thanks very much.
I mean, I wonder what you think when you see those visuals. I'd imagine that you might have caught wind of the fact that former president, or soon-to-be former president, Donald Trump has just left the White House for the last time as president. And I see, as I look on social media, some celebrations from those tweeting and being really happy about the fact that it's a new time, a new era for the United States. What's your take?
Well, it is very significant. Earlier on there were some discussions about that President Trump would refuse to leave the White House. So this is a major step in with respect to that, of conceding that indeed in the end he did lose the election and that he is handing over the power to the incoming President Biden. So in that sense, it is a very symbolic gesture also from his side that we've seen just now.
Yeah. We've kind of gotten a bit of a glimpse into what to expect from, a Biden administration. Yesterday, I heard him talking and addressing addressing Americans, really, the world, really, talking about, really being emotional, really talking about those who died from COVID-19, something that was actually really missing from the previous administration. It almost seemed as though Trump refused to acknowledge the number of deaths due to COVID-19 and just that address. And I wonder if this is what the U.S. needs at this time. A president who seems to be more feeling, more emotional. Donald Trump always seemed to have this kind of bravado, and he never really wanted to acknowledge those who had died. Is that a glimpse really of what we can expect from Biden going forward? And in terms of leadership, is that a good thing?
I think this is what we can expect. We've heard a number of times by incoming President Biden now how he's talking about that there must be unity, that there must be cooperation between the different political opponents within the U.S., that there must be more empathy towards those who are affected by the pandemic, that there must be joint cooperation, the using of wearing of masks and social distancing, all those aspects also. He also referred often to the human aspects of the Americans in general, especially now during the pandemic, the impact it has on the economy. He often refers to his own history, where he grew up, his experiences with the neighborhood where he lived, and so in a sense he tries to give a more humane face for the president and that of President Trump. President Trump was I think created the impression that he is a very strong leader, that he wants to take decisions very often on his own, that he has a certain, as he called, base that he wants to address. So for those people, obviously, this today is exactly the opposite. They feel that they have lost out with their leader.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I think the main challenge for President Biden is how to cross this divide, because as we've seen with the election, it was almost a 50-50 divide, a 42-48% divide. And in that sense, that I think it's going to continue. It's not as if President Biden now, after today, is going to work with a much more unified population, the American population. He still has to prove to himself, to the others, especially the Trump supporters, that he can also address the issues that they regard as important.
Yeah. There's supposed to be, ideally, some kind of handover period where, the previous leader, the predecessor, is a little bit hospitable to the next president and sort of giving him a chance to understand how things work and so forth. And it does seem that the former president, Donald Trump, was unwilling to give that to Joe Biden. I mean, even the fact that the First Lady refused to give a tour or anything to the current firstly to the incoming First Lady. I mean, will that impact Biden as he starts his term as president, or will that not really make much of a difference, given the fact that Biden, of course, was vice president before, so I'm sure he's very familiar with the White House in any case. But is there supposed to be, ideally, some sort of handover that would assist in some ways the Biden administration?
Well, what we've seen, the optics of it as it is, that was absent. That we've seen that President Trump didn't do it, his wife didn't do it. But what happened behind the scenes in terms of the transition teams, both sides have teams that manage the transition. So in that sense, also the fact that President Biden, or incoming President Biden, already appointed his cabinet, that means that a lot of work, background preparations have been done already. As you said, he is a former vice president. He knows the functioning, the working of the White House very well. So in that sense, wasn't like, for example, when President Obama entered the White House without any prior experience. There, the transition was much more important for him than for example, now President Biden, who is in the system for many, many years. And as this vice president, he had the first-hand experience of how the White House works. So I think it's going to be a relatively smooth transition. What has to happen now is really what I expect we are going to hear in his inaugural speech, and that is an announcement of some of the very first steps he wants to take in terms of policy. Executive orders that he is going to sign very soon with respect to, for example, climate change, the Paris Agreement, about rejoining the World Health Organization, and many other matters. So I think we can expect that quite soon.
Yeah, and you know, of course, it's not going to be as much fanfare as when Obama was inaugurated, but is it as much of a historic moment for the U.S. as it was when the former President Barack Obama was inaugurated, given the fact that, you know, the VP Kamala Harris is the first, what's been called the first woman of color, and the first woman really to be a vice president of the U.S. Is this really a big story? We won't obviously see the crowds that we saw back then because of COVID-19, but really, well, how do you see this?
Well, I think the inauguration of President Obama was a very special event. This one is going to not be at the same level, but I think the fact that Kamala Harris will be the first woman and person of color as the vice president is highly significant. Yeah. But again, not at exactly the same level as that of President Obama. I think what is also significant over and above the personalities involved is the fact that it is officially the end of the Trump era. The Trump administration. And I think for many people, it's a major relief that this is going to happen. Yeah. So in that sense, it's a symbolic end of an era and another symbolic beginning of an era. At the same time, I think you've referred to the pandemic in general. I think this is one of the first expectations of millions of Americans is how President Biden is going to deal with this matter, because they are in a very serious crisis. Yeah. And therefore, this is going to be one of his first and most important priorities, is how to take steps that are of direct significance, that are visible, of a new president with a new approach. And I think this is what many people are looking for.
Yeah. You know, while we talk about the new vice president, President-elect Kamala Harris, is it almost to you as if this is I want to say a continuation of where you know, America left off after the Obama administration? It seemed that they were going, you know, a certain path, a certain route, and then there was this I'll call it an interruption, for lack of a better word, the interruption of Donald Trump, who surprised many people really by becoming president. Does this feel as though, all right, it's going back to where the U.S. was really trying to go?
Yes, I think so. If we look at the number of people who have been nominated by President Biden or incoming President Biden for his executive, many of them have come or were serving during the time of the Obama administration. So there is certainly now a continuation that's been created between the personalities, the persons involved in the Obama administration, and those that will be part of the Biden administration. I think the issues will also become very important and will possibly be a continuation. One of them is about health. The Obamacare became a very controversial issue during the Trump administration.
Yeah.
They didn't in the end change it. While the Biden administration, Joe Biden promised or anticipated that he's going to try to improve on Obamacare. And given the fact of where they are now with the pandemic, it's even more urgent than during the sort of the normal circumstances. But the health issues during the Obamacare was a major matter, and I think in the Biden era it's going to be even more of the case because of the current pandemic. International relations is another matter. The Iran situation, the relations with Iran, is something that we will have to watch very closely. President Trump, as we know, walked away from the Iran nuclear agreement. President Biden will most possibly try to develop a new relationship with Iran. The same applies, I think, is going to apply to Israel. During the Trump era, Israel made quite some substantial improvements in its relations with Arab countries in the Middle East, like, for example, the UAE, even with the Sudan, with Bahrain and others. And the question is going to be, what is the Democratic administration going to do with respect to that? Because at the same time, they want to develop better relations with Iran. And it seems as if it is sort of a zero-sum relationship, either good relations with Israel or better relations with Iran. So that's going to be a major challenge from an international point of view. And then how to deal with, from a more multilateral point of view, with the international community.
Prof, let me just interject there at the moment. Just some breaking news for us there. Of course, President Trump arriving at Joint Base Andrews, where he's to give a speech before departing for Florida on board Air Force One. I suppose some of his supporters are really sort of there. I saw some waving flags just now. What do you expect from his final speech as he departs and leaves for Florida and goes back to being, the businessman Donald Trump that he was?
Well, I think what he's going to say is not conceding that he lost the election, but he's going to say to his supporters, well, he's still there. He's there now for the next 4 years. He's going to represent them. He's going to build up a movement to represent their interests or their views as a private citizen now, but he will most possibly say in 4 years' time he's going to be back.